real wacky. And I said, but we'll try it and test it. And that was 6 years ago. And when we first tested, when we added actual bacteria and fungi to the carbon source, to the NPs and Ks, our business completely changed. I went from 2 part-time employees. In 6 years, I went from 2 part-time employees to 37 employees. We sell pretty much in every state in the United States in 5 countries. And we don't even hardly market. It's all been organic growth. It's all been through results. The same thing that Dale's seen, the same thing that guys that have used our product have seen, and that's how we've grown our business. We grow our business through ROI, return on investment. I'll tell everybody this. Hey, number one, my dad still farms. He's 78 and he still farms. And I won't ever sell you anything I wouldn't sell my dad. And number two is, if I don't give you a return on investment, you're not going to do business with me. And nor would I even ask you to do business with me. If I can't do that, I need to go back and work for Monsanto or somebody. So far, our business has grown that way. Organic growth through results. Because we handle everything a lot differently. And this is what I'm talking about. So you have a lot of companies. People ask me, who's your competition? Well, that's really hard to say. First place that we start off, we call this the ABCs for a reason, agronomy, biology, and chemistry, because we start off with agronomy. We don't hardly make any kind of recommendation whatsoever without looking at a soil test. So really a lot of our competition is who's ever doing your agronomy work. Is it a crop consultant? Is it the local retailer? Is it the university? We believe heavily in a lot of things like Neil Kinsey's book. If you're a reader, if you're not a reader, I suggest you go Google Neil Kinsey and get his book, Hands on Agronomy. It is totally different than what you'll find at universities and things like that. It's 20, 30 years ahead of them. It's also way ahead of a lot of your local retailers because they use mostly university recommendations. And this is why we get a lot of results we do. But then we take it into biology. And literally, we're going to talk about biology, microbes. We're talking about actual bacteria and fungi. You guys that know about cows and even your own body, you have beneficial microbes in your gut. Trees don't grow out there without a microbe breaking down the leaves and the limbs. That's what God put here a billion years ago to create fertility. So we're not doing anything different. And then chemistry, we wrap that in with, your chemistry nutrients, your potassiums, your borons, cobalt, all that stuff. So what I used to call snake oil, really, when you get down to the science of it, really what it is, it's not snake oil. It's biology and it's chemistry. Click. So, Biology 101.
Good morning. Like Trey said, my name is Bert Regan. I'm one of the agronomists for Concept Agritech. The biology component is hard to see because the majority of it is microscopic. We have had 400 years in this part of the world of basically continuous agriculture in a lot of areas, and they've seen all kinds of fertilizers. When the Pilgrims landed, they wanted to, and the Indians were teaching them how to grow corn, Quanto told them to put 1 fish per corn plant because the fish was going to break down and release ammonia compounds, and therefore you had fertilizer and micronutrients for the corn. As we progressed on into the industrial age, we started using more and more harsh chemical, salt-based fertilizers, and we started to destroy a lot of natural microflora that our soils had. This reduced the efficiency of those soils. It reduced the ability of the soil to have free nutrients that a plant could take up. Like Trey alluded to, if you have a little scope of trees out in the field, you don't fertilize those trees, you don't water them, yet somehow every year they continue to grow, they put on acorns or persimmons or whatever's going on out there. And it's because you have a complete, healthy ecosystem there with good Lord designed. Our product, the Bunch Bugs DF, tries to replenish the healthy, beneficial microorganisms back into a concentrated area there in the seed trench or in the rhizosphere, the root zone, in order to help increase the efficiency of the nutrients that are available in the soil and also the nutrients that you apply otherwise through mechanical means. Again, mycorrhiza, bacteria, fungi, we have protozoans, even some beneficial nematodes. All of those work in either nutrient management or disease control. Again, Knowledge 101. When we're talking about microbes, they are found in, on, and around living roots. I've already talked about the years of tillage, what microbes do. One thing I didn't mention is they improve the soil structure. Those microbes, most of them require the same requirements that we have. We have to have air, water, shelter. They change the structure of the soil in order for them to be able to house all of their offspring and store things that they need like oxygen and water. And in nature, everywhere you see a healthy herd, the beneficials tend to outcompete the non-beneficials. Everybody that has cows out in the pasture know that if you run too few cows and you got a lot of coyotes in the population, you got to throw a donkey out there in order to keep the coyotes at bay. If you have a large herd, that helps protect the young and the old from the coyotes because they will outcompete and keep the predators at the perimeters. Same thing works with the microbes.
So on the biology, too, how many of y'all put manure out? Bunch. So over the years of putting manure out, how many of you no-till? Cover crop? Okay. So this is one of the things that we found from the biology. There's a guy in central Indiana, Roger Winning. And Mr. Roger's been on the front page of the No-Till Farmer magazine probably 10 times, and Cover Crop magazine, no telling how many times, because Mr. Roger's been no-tilling and cover cropping for 27 years in central Indiana. So when we first went to Mr. Roger, to be honest with you, I didn't think putting biology on a guy that's been cover cropping and no-tilling for 25 years is going to do a darn thing, right? You wouldn't think it would. All the cover crop guys will tell you that's all you need to do. You cover crop and you grow biology. But like Burke said, 400 years of putting synthetic fertilizers and stuff like that out, guess what you've done? You've eradicated a lot of beneficial bacteria. So potash and DAP, anybody ever put that out? Yeah. So it's 70% salt. So if you're putting out 200 pounds of, a blend, you're putting 140 pounds of salt. So raise a hand. How many people are going to go to Sam's, buy 140 pounds of Morton salt, throw that on your field? Well, that's what we're doing. Now, we got to have the P and K. It works. Don't get me wrong. We're not up here saying you don't need dry fertilizer. That's the last thing we'll tell you. We'll tell you do. We recommend a lot of it. But the point is you've done that with pesticides, the herbicides, the fungicides. Roundup, if you'll Google, is actually is a patent as a bactericide from Monsanto. You can Google it, find out. That's weird. And Roundup kills by translocating, going down into the roots. Well, Bert said a while ago, all your microbes live in 1/64 of an inch of the root. And then you just put a bactericide down there. So if you got soybeans, you need them to nodulate. You need nitrogen-fixing bacteria. And if you just spray Roundup on them, guess what you just did to your nitrogen-fixing bacteria? You just kill them. So I mean, it's pretty simple. So when we started getting into this, it's like, and then you see the results we do, you're like, well, that's pretty simple. It's like the first time that we actually tested a bunch of bugs in 2012, our microbes, and we did soil tests, and we increased the phosphorus. We doubled the available phosphorus from one pint application by the time the corn was at D4. And I called our biologist and I said, "You're not going to believe this. We increased the phosphorus." And he goes, "Yeah, you dum-dum. He said, I put 12 nitrogen or phosphorus releasing bacteria in there. What did you think was going to happen? So I was like, that's a good point. So that's really how we formulate our biology is we put in there what your crop needs. And the neat thing about it, when we went to Mr. Roger Winnie, thinking we weren't going to help him, we actually, since he already had his ground ready, he's had all this residue sitting in there from cover crop and no-till, guess what? We spiked his organic matter more in 1 year than he did in 10 years of cover crop. Because he was ready. The other thing is I asked you about manure. This is probably one of the biggest things we see. I'll talk about Steve Kincaid. Southern Illinois, his ground is very similar to what I'm standing on right now. It's even about the same color. That county is called Clay County, Illinois. The average corn yield in that county is about 127. It's that bad. But he's averaging really close to 200 now. But he's been putting on manure for years. He hasn't been putting on anhydrous because anhydrous is really tough on your biology. But guess what? His organic matter was still 1.5. Wasn't any different. But he's been putting on 17,000 gallons of manure a year for almost 10 years. But when we put the biology out there, we doubled his organic matter in 5 years because he had his ground ready. So when you tell me you're using cover crops and no-till and things like that, and you have been for a while, I go, I know what we're going to be able to do with his organic matter when we put the right biology out there. Or I've got a guy that has been putting out manure, but he hasn't really been seeing his organic matter really increase. Well, let me tell you, it will. And then how many people will raise silage? Several of you. And one thing I will guarantee we will do, and you'll see it in every picture, is you will see increase in tonnage, just because we've never not increased the size of a plant. That is just a guarantee. It's just some of the stuff we do.
So, when Trey was talking about having the microbiologists actually put some things in, we don't throw this consortium together nilly-willy, which is kind of what you're doing if you just leave everything up to cover crops. You're hoping you've got a lot of good beneficials out there, and you're hoping that the cover crops are going to bring them up. We actually target beneficial microbes. And as you can see on this slide here, this is a petri dish where the auger in there is a phosphorus auger. So what you're looking for is these little smudges here. That's where the bacteria have released the phosphorus from the auger and congregated it in their colony. So these competitors here, number one there is what a lot of companies are putting out. It contains 2 bacillus strains. Microbiology, having infera biology going down the soil, that's a buzzword now. Everybody wants it. Well, that's what you're getting from a lot of them. And you see there's a little bit going on. Competitor 2 has how many?
I think it has 3 or 4.
3 or 4, maybe double. So you see it's a little bit better. We went and pulled one that we were looking at testing and had 12 strains. And you see it's a little bit better, but it still doesn't compare to our original bunch of bugs, which is at the top. It's pretty much a continuous blob there, doing pretty good. And that's got around 3 dozen different microbes in it. And then we come to our newest product, the Bunch of Bugs DF, which has got several orders of magnitude more microbes.
Hundreds of bacteria and hundreds of fungi.
The thing about it is that these were chosen for the jobs that they do. This instance is phosphorus. They also do many other jobs. But as you can see, when you have the concentrations, the types in the right place at the right time, the benefit that they can give you. And this is what we're looking for. When Trey was talking about doubling the amount of phosphorus that's available to that plant, well, that's pretty impressive. A lot of people, when they've been putting out dry fertilizer all these years, they're putting, kind of like putting money in a bank. unfortunately, a lot of times you don't get to make a withdrawal, and that phosphorus you're throwing out there never gets available to that plant. Proper biology now will allow you to make some withdrawals on that and actually reap the benefit of all that phosphorus you've been putting down all these years.
And so, when we started doing biology about 6 years ago, there was very few. Monsanto wasn't in it, nobody was really hardly in it. We were in it, seeing really good results with that top product we call Bunch of Bugs. And I know it's a stupid name, Bunch of Bugs, but went on about 3 months trying to figure out a name for it. One night, me and my wife were in the kitchen, and I'm frustrated, and she goes, well, what's in it? And I said, a bunch of bugs, you know, and she goes, well, just name it that. And I said, fine. So one guy asked me if I had a bunch of grasshoppers in it, and I said, no, it's a little different. But I know it's a stupid name, but I got what I got. But this is the problem, is that so many times we have people say, hey, I'm using this one, or this one has biology in it. You know, I'm like, okay, send me what you got, we'll put it in a petri dish. We put it in the petri dish and it shows that it can actually grow. Well, yeah. The problem is, this is at 80 degrees for 30 days. All right? Who in here plants corn at 80 degrees soil temperature? Nobody. I mean, we're planting at 50 degrees soil temperature. Some guys in Illinois will plant at friggin' 40 degree temperature. So you know it's not going to do anything. Usually it takes some of these about 60 to 90 days. I'm planting a 110-day corn. What good is that going to do? Absolutely no good. But it's marketing, right? They say they got a bug. That drives me up the wall. If you're going to do something, do it right. Make sure you're giving the farmer something that's actually going to grow and benefit him. The neat thing what we've seen, ours grows so fast that we will increase the soil temperature around the root zone within 48 hours about 5 degrees. That's a big deal when you're trying to plant early. I mean, you give me like grain sorghum, anybody ever plant milo, it's like just hard to get emerged. And I had a lot of guys planting, 150,000 on milo to hope to get 100 to 120. Then they get mad at me because they got 147,000 up and it's too thick, But we heated the soil up and go, and it's not any different than a silage pile. That's why a silage pile is hot, right? Because it's got bacteria working. We're just doing the same thing around a seed piece, no difference whatsoever.
Would this work in a transplant water solution?
Absolutely.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, we do a lot of that.
I'm kind of different from maybe a lot of the guys in this room. I work my soil. I'm still term plowing.
Yep.
And in your opinion, am I destroying my soil?
No, sir, not necessarily, because the guy I told you earlier, Steve Kincaid, that puts out all that manure, he does conventional till and is never no-till, and so he does not do any till. He tills the crap out of it. Now, what you do is you do hurt your microflora, like say your mycorrhiza. Mycorrhiza is a web. Bert can tell you a little bit more about it. So you do destroy that web, and you do cause something. So you are decreasing it. But are you putting manure out?
No, sir. I'm in tobacco.
In tobacco? But you've got, so if you're in tobacco, you got, and I'm going to take over there.
We can't no-till tobacco. Tobacco has to have good, soft, clod-free dirt.
Oh, you're gonna like Soil Revive a lot. So we do a lot of potatoes. We're on, I guess 100% of the potato acres in the state of Arkansas. One reason is that what you just said, clod free, is when you use biology, and I think we have that picture up here. We'll show you in a minute. When you use biology, it will help break up the soil. It'll break up the hard pan because the microbes are out there moving, and I'll show you pictures later on about that. But yes, is it ideally perfect? No. But is 90% of my farmers conventional till? Yeah. Are we still increasing organic matter? Absolutely. It's just not quite as fast.
So Trey talked about increasing the soil health. That's a big component of the agronomy portion, is increasing your soil health, bringing your soil into balance so that you're getting the most bang for your buck and your soil is close to being as productive as it possibly can.
the advantage of the microbes, you can see the increases here. The big thing in relation to what Trey was talking about with the heat in the seed furrow, see that CO2, see the values for that? Microbes, majority of that are the ones that are beneficial to the soil are aerobic. They breathe air like you and I. They need oxygen. They release carbon dioxide. Their whole mission is to eat, breathe, and burn. High CO2 value means that you've got a good, healthy population going, and it really pays off. Another thing is, on some of your soil tests, if you notice over there and you have a high hydrogen percentage in your soil, CO2 being released on a molecular level in the soil will dramatically reduce the hydrogen concentration in and around that root zone. You take a look for it, chemistry tells us that hydrogen has a greater affinity for oxygen than what carbon has the ability to hold on to, which means that you've got two oxygens there in one CO2 molecule. So when the CO2 percolates up through the soil that has a high hydrogen, free hydrogen percentage, you're sequestering 4 hydrogens, because what's water? H2O. And you got 2 oxygen molecules there, so you're knocking 4 hydrogens out, which creates a microclimate in that root zone where your pH and everything else is adjusted as close to optimal as possible. Because the microbes living on the root.
And you mentioned one thing here too.
Yeah, this is soil health. Oh, the organic nitrogen.
This is a big one right here.
Yeah.
So one of the things that we also said is organic nitrogen. We put several nitrogen-fixing bacteria in there. And again, what do you see in the soil? We doubled the amount of available nitrogen in the soil. You need, how many people put nitrogen out on their soybeans? Nobody, right? 70 bushels of soybeans takes 240 units of nitrogen. Where's that coming from?
More than that. That's,
More than that?
Yeah.
That's why I'm not an agronomist.
80 bushel soybean crop requires 600 units of nitrogen. 600. Now you think about that. You have poor nodulization.
So that comes from nodulization, the majority of it, what's in the soil already, right? It comes from organic matter. So what eats your organic matter worse than anything? Soybeans, right? Soybean rotation. You want to hurt organic matter? Put it in soybeans for a while. I got a guy that we started doing business with just this year, and he's in southern Indiana, and I don't know why, but he has planted all soybeans since 1986. The organic matter from all his neighbors that we do business around is about 2.5. His organic matter literally is between 0.3 and 0.7. He's killed his organic matter, and he's wondering why he's making 35 bushel beans. And I'm like, well, you're not rotating. You're not putting anything back.
He refuses to rotate.
And he refuses to rotate, and he still says he's not going to. But this is what we're talking about. This is 1 year. This is actually from the time that this is a check. And you see how we're increasing organic matter. And then really the only way we're doing it is we're putting beneficial bacteria in there that are releasing what's already in the soil. And again, on the organic nitrogen. You know, these guys now, they put down 30% less nitrogen than they did before because we're utilizing the nitrogen that they are putting down better. It's not being taken up in the stover, which we'll talk about a little bit on residue management. And we're taking that residue and breaking it down the proper way, so we're getting nutrients from your crop residue, and we're releasing what's been stuck in there for hundreds of years, specifically if guys are no-tilling or putting manure down. So it's really a program. So a lot of people go, well, this is going to cost me extra money. When they end up finding out, not only does it end up at the bottom line not really costing you any extra money, maybe even saving you some money in the long run, but my soil health is going up, my organic matter is going up, my land value is going up, my available phosphorus goes up, and everybody in here, I know, you don't even have to raise your hand, all your dry fertilizer is based off of soil tests, right? So if I increase your phosphorus level, what's your recommendation for DAP do? Goes down, right? And that's exactly what we're going to do. This is just another example. Same guy. Organic matter didn't increase quite as much, but again, organic nitrogen release double. And this is done by a third party. And again, CO2 burst, double. Soil health, double. Just what we kind of said.
This isn't gonna be real product heavy, guys, but when we're talking about these things, we do feel it's important just to kind of let you know the names of the products that we use in order to achieve these things. The Bunch of Bugs TF, the Bunch of Bugs DF ST, and a new product. It's either gonna be Bugs Right or Bow Right.
It's gonna be Bio Right. We're really changing that this morning because this just doesn't sound good.
These are the products that contain our Optimum Microbe Consortium of not only bacteria, but also fungi and protozoan and even some beneficial nematodes. We have a microbial product to fit your management practices. If you don't have in-fur kits on your planter and you have no plans whatsoever to put one on it, well, we can get you some biology with a seed treatment, or we can get you a lot of biology with the BioRite or Bugs Right. The RITE stands for Rapid Infusion Technology. Basically what it is, Trey was talking about when you continuously tilling, you can negatively impact your microbes. The reason why is you turn them over, they're exposed to UV sunlight, UV light kills microbes. That's why hospitals have them, clean rooms have UV lights, all of these things that they want to keep bad germs out, they use UV light because it zaps them. Well, it'll kill the good ones too. This technology allows broadcast application across the top of the field, and it actually will get down into the soil without having to be incorporated in a fairly short time period so that the microbes are protected from UV breakdown. Again, the residue products, Trey alluded to that, those are microbes, they are beneficial digesters. And when we say beneficial digesters, how many of y'all have been told if you've got too much trash in your field, whether it's corn or soybeans or whatever, if you want to get rid of it, you go out and you spread urea on it. How many of y'all ever heard that? You want to melt those stalks, those are urea out. It's a common practice. Problem is that the urea you're spreading out there, you're feeding non-beneficial digesters. They don't break the stalks down and return the nutrients that are in the stalks to the soil. They break them down and release everything that's in the stalk into the atmosphere as methane. And the worst thing about it is when you come back and to put your starter fertilizer down, you're going to eat the nitrogen that's put down in your starter fertilizer, so your corn starting off the next year doesn't have as much oomph to get up and go. If you're going to put the microbes down, you got to give something to feed them. That's why we have these microbial catalysts. The BioBait XP is paired perfectly with the Bunch of Bugs DF. It is a component of the seed treatment and the BioRite. BioBait XP is a superior food source. It has carbon sources, it has sugar sources, and the XP component of it is a new thing that we have now. It's called Root Tech, and basically that is a phenomenal root stimulator. You feed the microbes, get the colony blown up until the root system gets large enough for them to populate it and sustain it. Well, by having the Root Tech in there in the XP, now we can increase the amount of roots that are available in a much shorter time period, so the colony doesn't have to rely on the catalyst to thrive until the plant catches up.
So on your tobacco for the transplant, we'll get more in depth on this in a few, but we'll show you some slides. You're going to want to use the XP. We have actually a product called Root Tech, where we're growing roots underwater. And so all of our transplant guys use the stew out of it, and it's amazing. And then when you do transplant, you don't have that what do you call it? Transplant
Shock.
Transplant shock. We basically eliminated that. So you'll like it.
Can you use these products in your water as you plant?
Yes, sir.
Absolutely. That's
Yes, sir.
number one way we would want them out.
Yes, sir. And if anybody has, you know, we work with people that grow vegetables and they're on subsurface irrigation, drip tape. These products work through drip tape as well. So, you know, anything like that, we're good to go with. The Sweet Success is our complex sugars that are derived from molasses that we have refined in order to provide energy, not only for the microbes, but also for the plant itself. Very successful, increasing the Brix levels. And Fulvic Force 8 is fulvic acid that is, with the carbons in it, it's also a good food source for microbes, but it also provides several health benefits to the plants as well. It's used in a lot of different arenas. Right now, we're talking about it as a catalyst. Later on, we'll talk about it in use with foliar products. Kind of show you some pictures. These, the soybeans on the left were treated with the bunch of bugs DFST. The ones on the right were not. You can see they both had fungicide and insecticide on them. So it's not like we had, you know, a good treated bean over here and an untreated over there. The only difference was the biology. They were planted in germination tiles at the exact same time, and you see the difference.
So the ST stands for seed treatment, and if you can see out here, Dale has just purchased a seed treater because of the results that we've been seeing on our Bunch of Bugs ST. Like Bert said, a lot of people can't put in furrow or don't want to put in furrow, so we've created a seed treatment. It's a biological seed treatment. Also, as you'll see in a next click, it is one heck of a inoculant. Usually when you have an inoculant, you have one, maybe two different strains. We're talking hundreds of different strains. And not only are we inoculating for nitrogen, you're actually getting phosphorus, you're getting root growth stimulants, you're getting God knows how many other ones. But again, you can see the nodulization is dramatic. So how are you going to make 70 bushel beans if you don't have that kind of nodulization? You're not.
Dale took these pictures this year. So this is Virginia, you know, data here. And like I said, most of your over-the-counter inoculants contain Brady rhizobium. There's nothing wrong with Brady rhizobium. It's been used as a standard soybean inoculant for years. At best, you're getting maybe 2 species of the Brady. I don't have a problem with Brady, except that Brady tends to be fragile. And Brady's are not as persistent throughout the growing season. So you get a good push early with Brady's, and then they kind of peter off and don't provide as much stimulation to the plant later in the season. Our product, as long as you have an active root system, they're multiplying, they're increasing, and they're providing all the good things that they do for that plant.
You know, one of the things we didn't put on here is actually our testing is how, we want to see how long longevity on the soybean was of our biology and against the competitor. And the competitor longer was on there, obviously the dose died. Ours actually increased. And on the seed, which is like basically unheard of. So that means that we can treat early and still you'll have viable biology on the seed.
Another thing to note is that even though Brady's are good, a lot of people like to put molybdenum on their soybeans because it is a micronutrient that is needed in soybeans in early development. If you put moly on soybeans that are treated with a standard Brady rhizobium inoculant, you better be going to the field pretty quick because molybdenum being metal tends to kill bacteria. Ours, on the other hand, because they are more hardy, can be mixed with moly and applied 3 months ahead of time before going to the field and not experience any colony decline. Again, this is another picture of seed treatment. You can see this one is really crazy, the difference in the amount of nodules in the treated versus the untreated. You know, I mean, results vary based on soil tests and things like that. But when you can go out and find examples like this, it's pretty impressive, because you know you're going to have the ability for that nitrogen to be fixated in that plant and utilized. I'll let Trey tell the story on this one, because it happened the year before I showed up.
Yeah, so this was our first real test with our bunch bugs, and this is the one I wanted to show you. So what we were doing is when we first came out with the bunch of bugs product, we weren't exactly sure what rate to use. What was the optimal rate? So we went anywhere from 8 ounces to a gallon. A gallon was way too much, to be honest with you. When you had that much microbes in the ground, that's what started cannibalizing a lot of your nutrients, believe it. So what we did is we planted this plot, me and Daniel, and as you can see, it looks like this floor, except it's a little harder than this floor. When we were planting it, I told Daniel, because our little 6-row planter, which is 3 times bigger than Dale's 2-row planter, we couldn't even get the seed covered up. The ground was that hard. You know, we were probably not getting them all. I told Daniel, I said, we need a rain to get this corn up. And of course, we got 5-inch hard packing rain 2 days later, right? I mean, you can see how crusted over this ground is. Well, I went to check it, figuring we were going to replant it. And when I did, I saw these rows. There's 6 rows over here that look like a perfect stand. You can see them all the way across. You know, when I pulled up, I was like, what the heck is that over there? And I walked over there, we planted 32,000. I had 27,000 up on these 6 rows. Right beside it, the untreated check had 11. Right beside that, which is not in the picture, the lower rate of this only had 15,000. So we were wondering what we did, and we hit the right amount of biology that literally changed the tilth of the soil so fast, and the increased heat, you remember me talking about, we got better germination, we got better tilth, and we got better emergence. That was amazing. That's when we knew we were on to something. So then we go, well, hey, let's take a soil test. This is what we told you earlier about the soil test. So what we did is, Daniel's a pretty big boy. He's not as big as, my agronomists are all big, just so you know, I don't know what it is, but they're big guys. So Daniel, what is it? Daniel, 240? No, he's got it. 220. Oh, he ain't 220. Your leg's 220. So right here, Daniel was able to pull an 8-inch cord, no problem whatsoever. Shoved it right down, as hard as that ground was. Right here in the middle, 2.5, 3 inches is about all he could do before he about bent the probe. And right here, just a little bit more than that. So the biology was changing the tilth. And the interesting thing is here was about 8, here was about 6, here was about 4, here was about 3. The closer you got to where the biology was, the deeper you were able to penetrate, which was really neat. So that tells you the biology was growing on the roots, and as the roots were growing, they were decreasing the compaction. So a lot of our guys don't end up deep tilling or anything like that now. Our no-till guys are noticing the same thing. Hey, I don't have a hard pan where I've been using biology for several years. And then again, when we did it too, we got increased phosphorus.
That's what it looks like. When the microbes make that soil easier for those root hairs to penetrate, you get a bigger root mass. What happens when you have more roots? You have to have a bigger stalk. Notice the difference in the size of the stalk. If any of y'all saw the video that Dale did last year when I was at Mr. Beachy's farm, we talked about vascular bundles. That's the tubes inside the corn stalk that move nutrients up to the ear. If you have a larger stalk, you can get more vascular bundles and larger vascular bundles, which means that you can move more water and nutrients compared to a stalk of lesser girth. And here is actually a still from that video, which I think is in your book also, that shows the difference in the amount of roots that biology can generate.
So I think Dale said y'all are 10 days away from a drought around here, which is about 5 days longer than where I'm from. But if you got a root mass like that, you got a drought event fixing to happen, you're in a lot better shape with the bigger roots, right? With and then increasing moisture holding capacity, higher organic matter, you're gonna hold on. And the funny thing is, we don't have it on this, but we had, we're mostly fur irrigation, or irrigation down in the Mid-South where we're from. And some sandy ground, we had a farmer got behind on his irrigation, and to the road, his corn, where he did the check, the untreated, the corn looked like, when it gets real dry, it looks like pineapples all just, twisted up, and to the road was not having any issues. And the reason is, a couple things, you got a healthier plant, you got, we'll show you some infrared where we have a cooler plant because it's respirating correctly, but you got bigger stalks and roots.
So what happens in a wet year?
We'll get to that too, but basically, the same thing.
So by changing the tilt of the soil, you increase your perk, so that when you do have a wet year, you get water penetrating down through the soil profile better, which means that area now has a greater field capacity. So you can hold on to it and still maintain aeration better than in soil that doesn't have it, which typically if you get a lot of rain, or especially one big event, the soil structure kind of collapses in on itself and you get that sheeting erosion, right? You don't get the water penetration, you don't get to hold on to anything that, falls out of the sky, and those wet years, you can actually have water standing in the ditches, and 2 days after the rain, the plants, are starting to suffer because they don't have any water because it didn't penetrate down in the soil profile.
So one of the products that we came out with this year, and it has our new Bugs DF in it, is called BioRice. It's for rice. We tested it last year. And so in rice, it's underwater for 3 months. You put it on there and you keep a flood. So if it's underwater for 3 straight months, what happens to the biology underneath there in the soil? Well, it dies. And you can see it. It drops off about 30%. If you do a soil health test like we did before the flood, and then right after the flood, it drops. What we were able to do, because we have biology now that can breathe and live underwater, and we grabbed it specifically to do that, for one, not only rice, but for in the Midwest, we are always wet spring. That is the #1 issue, yield issue for Central Illinois is not irrigation. They don't really hardly need any rain, but they get too much rain and it's drainage, right? So what we want to do is how could we grow roots and grow a plant in water? That was our mission. We got on that about 2 years ago, and now we're able to do it. And then from the rice, when we put our BioRice, our Bugs DF, we actually increased the soil health despite that ground being underwater for 3 straight months. So that was really neat. Does it make your corn waterproof? No. Does it make it hurricane proof? No. But it sure as hell helps. I love that one.
Yeah. So, this one really lays out the benefit of a complete program. A good starter with microbes up to this stage. Everything was planted at the same time. Notice we have a denser root ball over here. And the young ear we pulled, is it brown silk? These are not. Maturity-wise, typically what we see is everywhere we have biology down with proper nutrients, whether it's in fur or whatever, as long as your nutrient management's on par, plants reach physiological maturity sooner. And that's the name of the game. Especially if you get it in, what was one of the big things you have that affects your corn production this part of the world? Warm nighttime temperatures, right? Especially during pollination. Well, if that plant can actually get pollinated before you get into that warm nighttime temperature period, you're gonna have greater sets and you're gonna have increased yield.
And this all shows you too, you got, you get drought, you're gonna want this underneath there pulling up. The other thing is, he talked about vascular bones. So your stalk is your highway to your ear, right? That's your highway. That's where all your nutrients and water go up. That's where all your nutrients go to the ear. And the bigger your highway is, the more cars you can get on it, right? So more nutrients, more water you can go up and put down that plant. And then that's why your ear's bigger and why it's more mature. And actually, it'll stay greener longer too, which is what all the high yielding guys want too. And you'll be able to see that because it's a healthier plant. It's getting to physiological maturity the way God intended it, not just, a lack of dying too early.
So if we create all this biomass on this corn, especially if you're in a limited till or no till situation, you gotta have some way of getting rid of it. This is where the residue RX comes into play. In this part of the world, we would recommend you making this application in the spring. Down where I live in Mississippi, we do it in the fall because we've got enough days after corn harvest in order for this to get to work. When the temperature outside dips below 50 degrees, microbial activity tends to slow down. So in this part of the world, when you harvest corn, you don't have maybe a month before your nighttime temperatures or daytime temperatures start getting down below those 50 degrees, and you would start to see decreased performance. So you put this out in spring, broadcast application over the top of your stalks. This was 45 days after application. We actually had a hard time finding a stalk that would stay together well enough in order for us to split it. This one, you still could have beat a mule with it. Why is that important?
Coffee will be ready in 10 minutes.
Okay. So why is this important? Well, all that fertilizer you put out, whatever didn't go to that ear, is in this plant right here, in this stalk. You can release, on average, over 60% of all the nutrients that are found in that stover back into the soil in a usable form that the plant can take up, the next crop you plant. You're getting paid back for the amount of money you spent to fertilize that crop the year before because it's really being released back to you. If you don't do it and you got this, those nutrients are tied up, they stay tied up for a long period of time, and if they don't go through proper breakdown, then they volatilize off and escape into the atmosphere as methane, and you lose them.
So this is something you can do today. Your board is pretty outside. Go back to where you got some corn stovers, especially like maybe some that are like 2 years old. I did this fall in October. I was in northern Missouri, and the guy was cutting soybeans. And I was waiting on the combine. While the combine was coming by, I saw some corn stalks laying there from the year before. I pulled them up. They were just about still that hard, still had that lignin and everything in there. They were hard to cut. I had to cut them open. They couldn't just fall apart and break. They were 2 years old. When I ripped it open, click. But you can't see very well. This was all pink. All in here was pink. So what is that? That's probably fusarium or anthracnose or diplodium. It all overwinters. So all your stalk diseases, all your root diseases, all your ear diseases overwinter in the stalk. Well, if you put the good beneficial microbes in there, they eat the bad ones, and look what happens. You don't have anything. So what you guys see is by using Residue RX, using a bunch of bugs, using the program of beneficial biology year over year, is I got guys making 270 bushel corn on 20-inch rows, planting 45,000, and they don't have diseases. That's hard to believe. But what you're doing is you're steadily reducing that population year over year of the bad guys, and the good beneficial microbes are overtaken.
Is everybody familiar with the boll weevil eradication program? You know, the boll weevil was a humongous pest for cotton. Absolutely eliminated cotton production in the state of Georgia for several years. We all got together and decided that we were going to get rid of that little critter. And the only way we were going to do it, because it has several other alternate hosts, was to take care of stalk management in the fields on cotton and destroy the overwintering sites in the perimeters and edges of the fields. This is the same principle, but with disease. Removing all the moisture and all the food that is contained in this root wad discourages your disease to want to overwinter here. If it doesn't have a place to overwinter, then the amount of inoculum that's present in the soil for the next year is greatly reduced. Over time, it will get low enough that it will be exceedingly easy to manage. Tell them about the guy growing conventional corn.
Remind me, I've got too many stories.
Didn't spray a fungicide.
Oh, yeah, Darren Owens.
Yes.
Darren Owens, raising conventional corn for the, getting a really good premium for the chicken market, because everybody wants non-GMO now, right? And anyway, he's raising conventional corn and he's not having diseases in it, which is really strange. But again, it goes back to being on the program and reducing the amount of disease. The other thing that you'll see too is we put it out and a guy said, you know, he split the field with residue RX and none. And he said, well, I'm using the residue RX. When I got ready to plant my corn, I planted my corn, it got this big, it looked like he'd used a starter, but he didn't. And he's like, why is that? And I'm like, Bert, why is that? And the reason is that when these are getting broke down, this is sucking up your nitrogen you're using for your corn for the next year. So a lot of the nitrogen you're putting out is getting tied up literally in the residue that's not broken down. If it's already broken down, it doesn't need to go in here, it goes directly to your plant. 14 bushel yield increase that guy had just by doing residue RX. And so it wasn't just about breaking down the residue, it was about having the available nutrients that he needed there, that he was applying there for that spring crop, instead of it being used up by the old crop and the crop residue. So there's a lot to this. The funny thing is, the more we learn, the more we learn. And what we found out is that if you took a bucket this big about what we need to know, we know about this much, unfortunately. So we are always learning about this.
I'm gonna put this next slide up here, but we're gonna stop and take a break, let you get some coffee and go to the restroom or whatever. This is a good one, a natural break here. Because I know y'all are gonna look at it and go, holy cow, I hadn't seen that in a long time.
So that was the biology portion of our class today. And then we will move on to our chemistry portion. And I bet you didn't think you were going back to school today. But this is what we do, and this is what we're passionate about if you can't see it, because it works. And anyway, so I guess we'll take a 5 minute, 10 minute, 7.5 minute coffee tea break. I think there's bathrooms out here to the right and to the left.